Welcome to what we call the China-Bangla Energy Dialogue. It's of course co-organized by the Bangladesh Working Group on External Debt, which is BWGED to most of us. Also by Clean Coastal Livelihood and Environmental Action Network, also from Bangladesh. The third pole, and Urgewald. Well, what are the objectives of this dialogue? And of course, a dialogue is usually seen as being amongst equals. And yet, a dialogue is between friends, and that's what this is all about. Even as the two countries try to get closer together, try to get more friendly, we have a greater friendship that is required and a shared understanding between energy sector activists of China and Bangladesh towards a more climate responsible development and the only sustainable target set, which is of course 1.5 degrees as in the Paris Agreement. We also have this objective to discuss uninhibited, in a sense, the investments by Chinese companies in the energy sector of Bangladesh, and also because a lot of it is in fossil fuels, its potential impacts on communities on the ground, as also the accountability of institutions involved in the fossil fuel industry. And of course, with this enhanced understanding, we want to fuel joint collaborative actions against destructive coal and other fossil fuel investments in Bangladesh, which is of course an extremely vulnerable country on many different fronts. And therefore, I think we are best placed because we have been brought together by four very well-meaning and serious institutions that are engaged with the energy dialogue internationally and especially in the region and in Bangladesh. Clean is a socio-economic development organization working in the coastal zone of Bangladesh on forest, biodiversity, agriculture and climate change. Bangladesh Working Group on External Debt is a forum of 43 Bangladeshi organizations working on primarily debt, energy, water, and of course, the climate crisis. The third pole, which is a project that was launched as an initiative of China Dialogue in partnership with the Earth Journalism Network, is based both in New Delhi and in London, with editors based in Kathmandu, Beijing, Dhaka, and Karachi. It's a multilingual platform dedicated to understanding, they say, Asia's water crisis. Urgewald is a non-profit environmental and human rights organization based in a small town in Western Germany. For about 25 years, Urgewald has been fighting against environmental destruction and for the rights of people harmed by corporate profit. It has evolved from a small group of committed people to a powerful organization, we think, that primarily follows the money. And that's what brings us all together. We know that the relationship between China and this region, Bangladesh and the subcontinent here, has started a very long time ago, more than 2,000 years. The relationship was built on social and cultural exchange, which has become, of course, a trade relationship after a little while. Currently, we can say that it's a geostrategic friendship. Many of us will talk about how Pyra port can be very important geostrategically to China in the future, but definitely the Belt and Road Initiative and the Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar economic corridor that will crisscross. We all know about economic corridors crisscrossing across pretty much our region now, and how extractive that can be. And yet, of course, our countries are talking of greater friendship and dialogue. And therefore, without further ado, The house rules, I don't think I need to tell you. We're all very practiced with sitting in in webinars and discussions online. But of course, please type an asterisk or a star in the chat box if you want to talk directly. Put your questions in the chat box. Please turn your video cameras off unless you're a speaker, because we have some people with slower connections. We will have your mics muted until I request you to unmute it. Let me call upon a dear friend, Abdul Aval, to welcome us very formally. And really, Aval is this gentleman among activists. Like most of us are the street activists, fight for our rights kind. And Abdul Aval will do it with so much panache and grace. Mohammad Abdul Aval is currently working as the executive director of Noakhali Rural Development Society and also the chairperson of Campaign for Good Governance, SUPRO, of Bangladesh. He is well known for his long experience of working on the anti-debt movement, the movement against immunity of the World Bank, and organizing civil society of Bangladesh. He's also the focal point for global call to action against poverty, Bangladesh. Aval Bhai.
Thank you, Bidda. Thank you very much. Good evening, good afternoon to all present here in this discussion from different continents and countries. I'm thanking everybody for joining us, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all in the discussion in the webinar on behalf of the Bangladesh Working Group on Debt and Development, External Debt. So I'm very happy to be with here, and I would like to express my strong solidarity at the beginning of the discussion, those who are really fighting for the renewable energy and green energy and trying and planning to really develop a better world where we will be able to stop this climate crisis. Today, we are going to discuss on the China-Bangla energy issues, and the working group has started series of discussion from the last April this year and organized a number of dialogues and meetings with friends from different countries, especially the investing countries and IFIs. So it is so wonderful to see many of you all today, and I would like to thank to all friends from different countries for supporting us whole the year. We have been trying to organize an international dialogue on energy investment in Bangladesh with participation from friends from India, China, Japan, Indonesia, Australia, and European Union in the last week of November. We need support and cooperation from all of you. Hope you all will join in the greater dialogue on the issue. We know that the development cooperation between Bangladesh and China is growing as business is growing very faster with Bangladesh. We also know that China is the biggest trading partner of Bangladesh nowadays. So the economic ties are an important aspect of bilateral relation in between Bangladesh and China. We know that the trade balance is not in favor of Bangladesh, with huge trade gap worth $9 billion right at the moment. And Bangladesh pressing for concessions to reduce the deficit, and China obliged giving duty-free access to Bangladeshi products in China. And we all know that the China is investing in Bangladesh mainly in the area of manufacturing and also coming up to finance a number of projects on energy sector and very recently on renewable energy projects in Bangladesh with a cumulative power generation capacity to the tune of 500 megawatts. But most of the Chinese investment, the last couple of years, we know, especially in the 2018 and 2019 fiscal year, USD 407 million went into Bangladesh power sector, especially to coal-based power projects. When we are trying to shift from dirty fuel to green energy, it is the current time is very significant that the China is was very much interested in investing on coal-based power projects. And China and other foreign-backed coal-powered plants have been facing widespread local protest among the people, among the citizens, and especially the people who fear the pollution will damage their livelihoods and they will lose their lands and their livelihood currently they have. And this is under this backdrop, we are going to have dialogue on the Sino-Bangla energy issues in view of putting the people first, the people's interest, and also the green alternatives, as we have been searching to find out the way to stop climate crisis and to promote the green energy and green alternatives. I hope today the experts and the activists from across the world, some countries, those who are very close to us, and our activist friends who are participating will give us some right insights so that Bangladesh Working Group and the small local organization, people's organization, social movement can have some real insight and guidance so that we can strengthen the people's position, people's movement to really have control on this investment situation. The foreign direct investment is reality. And normally in Bangladesh, as we are really trying to grow more, though there is a question of equity and inequality issues, we are having very good growth, but we are really failing to address the inequality issues. So I'm just trying to end here with a special word, and especially I would like to thank the third pole and the Urgewald for co-organizing the webinar together, and my good friends Bida and Mehdi and all other friends, because I'm not very familiar with this group, but I'm in a very local process, and I'm really, really happy today that I'm participating with this wonderful discussion that will give me also some insight. Maybe I will be able to use that energy in future to really boost up the people's movement and people's position to achieve our goal. So thank you very much again. And on behalf of the working group, I'm welcoming you again, and special thanks to everybody for joining us. Thanks.
Thank you, Awal Bhai, for the enthusiastic welcome. Thank you so much. After formulating the revised power system master plan in 2018, China bagged a sort of leading role in financing and construction of coal-fired plants across Bangladesh. Chinese banks and companies are to generate 45.65%, that's 45,199 megawatts of power from coal in Bangladesh. So we have the Bharasalpalpa coal power plant, 307 megawatts. We have Patuakhali, 1,320. We have the Pyra BCPCL, 1,320, second phase. We have the 1,224 Banshkhali S. Alam coal power plant that is under construction with Chinese finance and Chinese companies as EPC contractors. There's also the Pyra first phase and the 574 megawatt Barapukuria coal power plant, which has already been installed with Chinese loans and EPC contractors. So China is already, of course, a big player in Bangladesh. And why do we consider it important to really discuss? Why are we continuing this discussion? Some may say that all is already lost. When the Chinese come in, there's nothing we can do. But we also know that that China is the highest solar energy producing country in the world, with 204 gigawatts from solar sources. And everybody else is far behind. The next solar power is the United States with 75 gigawatts. So really, the industry leader in solar energy, if they are friends with Bangladesh, and Bangladesh has enough land to generate about 160 gigawatts of solar power, which is about 3 times more than its requirement. We are saying China and Bangladesh can really, come together and plan differently, plan strategically. And therefore, it is time for us to discuss our strategy in the light of the Bangladesh government really rethinking its plans. And its plans are now to reduce the target from coal power in its master plan to renewables. Therefore, we must plan to shift them more effectively and very quickly. And therefore, it's very important. The speaker that we have coming up next is, aren't we going to have? Yes, it's Chinese, but works in the Manila-based People of Asia for Climate Solutions as its executive director. He's worked for more than 20 years in Beijing as a journalist and writer. And therefore, you will see that flair to see things and to articulate them very, very well. From 2005 to 2018, he's led the communications work for environmental and public health organizations, including Greenpeace and Tobacco Free Kids. Please welcome Tom Xiaojian Wong, who will give us an overview on the BRI and the BCIM, and of course, the particular focus is Bangladesh. Tom, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Vidya. And it's really nice to see old friends and new friends, some very long-term colleagues as well. So I will just go directly to my presentation, and I think I will share it here. All right, I think it's working now. Cool. So yeah, my presentation is called One Belt, One Road, 5 Pillars and 6 Corridors. This is just a very, very quick and brief introduction about what Belt and Road really is and what's...
yes, you've gone full screen. Yes, sorry.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, like before we talk about what Belt and Road Initiative is today, it's important that we go back to, as Vijay said at the very beginning, more than 2,000 years. Actually, it's more than 2,500 years, even longer than that. So before it was called Silk Road, it was just like people exploring. It's just human nature to go outside and try to see what we can do to help each other. Oops, sorry. Okay, here we go. So this exploration started before we even had the concept of nations or borders. And also, there wasn't really a road or a path or a belt to follow. People were just going in all directions with curiosity. And more than silk, there was gold, there was also jade, there was also herbs, food, exotic animals, vegetables, and everything being exchanged, as well as culture. And also, there wasn't really the name. nobody really called it the Silk Road. Nobody had it the necessary, like or the necessity or the need to name it Silk Road. Until in 1877, a German guy thought, like he needed a name to give to his exhibition. So by this page, I just want to show that the whole concept of Silk Road, whether in the ancient time or today, is quite vague. It's very, very broad. And the next one is actually a quick video. I will try to play it, but if it doesn't work, we can just skip it very quickly. So quite clearly, we can see, it all started with just the human nature to reach out and to see friendship, to seek actually culture exchange, to seek product exchange, so that like we could get new things, different things from other countries. And then today, in 2013, way before 2013 already, between China and a lot of countries, there was a lot of trade going on. But in 2013, the Chinese President Xi Jinping actually put that name back onto all this trade and called it the Belt and Road. At that time, it was called One Belt, One Road. Now it's called the Belt and Road Initiative. In the Belt and Road Initiative nowadays, there are 6 corridors, as you can see on this map. There's the new Eurasian Land Bridge, which goes all the way from the east coast of China, all the way to even as far as Spain and London. And then there's the China-Mongolia-Russia Economic Corridor, which you can see on the very top of this map. And there is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is quite famous nowadays, and the China Central Western Asia Economic Corridor, and the China-Indonesian or Indochina Peninsula Economic Corridor. And the last one is what we are talking about today, especially for a lot of our audience for tonight's webinar, who really care about the Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar Economic Corridor. Which you can see down in the almost the right corner of the map. Besides the 6 corridors, there are also 5 pillars, and this is something we constantly talk about. And also the Chinese government uses this to give people a very brief introduction about what the Belt and Road Initiative is all about. On the very top, that is the vision for Belt and Road Initiative is shared prosperity, it's mutual connectivity. However, in order to achieve this kind of prosperity and a shared future for all mankind, in Chinese it's used quite a lot. It started all the way back before Xi Jinping was Hu Jintao. He was already using the term the community of shared future for mankind. And that is the vision for Belt and Road Initiative. In order to achieve this vision, there are 5 very main pillars, and they're called 5 connectivity. The first one is policy. To reach that vision, you need to have a political dialogue. And the second one is facility or infrastructure. And of course, like on the other 2 sides, there is the financial. Especially with Chinese currency, RMB, to become an international currency. And there is the trade, which is a very important one. And I put people-to-people connectivity in the middle, because without people-to-people connectivity, pretty much a lot of the other pillars would not really stand there. Instead of talking about what the Belt and Road is, because that's a very, very difficult and challenging question, a lot of Chinese government officials, a lot of people who do work for the government do not have a clear answer to that question. So probably another way to look at that is we can talk about what the Belt and Road Initiative is not. For example, a lot of Chinese journalists had a hard time covering about Belt and Road Initiative. And that was why the propaganda ministry of China sent out a whole list of pitfalls for Chinese journalists to avoid. So when they talk about, or when they write about Chinese See, I'm doing it now. When they talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, here are the 8 pitfalls that they need to avoid. The very first one, and the most important one, is that just like more than 2,500 years ago, today's Belt and Road do not have a map. So you cannot really draw a physical map and say, like Belt and Road is reaching into these countries. And the second one is Belt and Road is an initiative, it's not a strategy. The difference here is that as an initiative, it only starts in China, but as a strategy, it's owned by China and it needs to be led and implemented by China. However, as an initiative, it's shared by everyone who's interested and engaged. The third one is Chinese journalists need to avoid military language and wording such as force or forces, because this could give the very strong sense that Belt and Road Initiative could become took on too much of the geopolitical color. And the fourth one is they should not really talk too much about China's overcapacity. It was quite interesting when the propaganda ministry put this one out and said not over talking about overcapacity, but the indication there was that overcapacity was also recognized as reality. So sure, one of the key reasons for China to have BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, is to share or to send out the overcapacity in terms of a lot of infrastructure and also energy projects, but there shouldn't be too much talking about this overcapacity, because it was quite clear at that time already, the Minister of Propaganda was aware that a lot of this capacity sharing or overcapacity spilling out was quite negative, such as coal investments. And the fifth pitfall was that Belt and Road was more about investment and loans. It wasn't aid. And the clear difference here is that investment and loans is a business, but aid is free. It's just a support. The sixth pitfall is it's not just about money, it's also about people. And that was when, after 2015, Chinese media started to try to talk more about cultural exchange, such as tourism and education, and also even sports and music events. And I will get back to that part later on at the end of my presentation. And the seventh pitfall was that Belt and Road Initiative is not China's. It belongs to the world. This is related to the second one that I mentioned earlier. It's an initiative, it's not a strategy. However, as you probably noticed earlier, I make that mistake constantly. I had an opinion piece published in South China Morning Post on Wednesday, October 28th, when we were launching a book. And earlier today, I was looking at it again, and clearly I made that mistake quite often, and I call it China's Belt and Road Initiative. So there you go. But Chinese journalists are not really allowed to make that mistake. And the last one, and the very important one, is that Belt and Road Initiative communications in China should not focus too much about religions and policies. So it's not a religious move, it's not a geopolitical move. It's more about money, it's more about trade, it's more about infrastructure building, and it's to some degree supposed to be about people-to-people connectivity. So with this one, we can probably not really see the BRI picture as clearly as we would want, but at least there are some noisy elements moved out of that picture, and you can see what Belt and Road is not supposed to be, or at least what China doesn't want Belt and Road Initiative to look like. So this is my last slide. Instead of what Belt and Road Initiative is or is not today, or what the Silk Road or the Maritime Silk Road was like many, many centuries ago, I think for us today, the most important question to ask is actually, what is the future Belt and Road story like? And what is the future Belt and Road picture look like. And as you can see here, we have 6 pictures, and they are from the Philippines, from Indonesia, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, and from Sri Lanka. And in the very last picture, that's our latest book, Belt and Road Through My Village. We launched just this Wednesday, and the whole focus is about how, out of all the 5 pillars, people-to-people connectivity need to stand as strong as possible so that other dialogues, other connectivities could go on. And I think this will probably give some kind of segue to our next speakers and see how we will move all the energy stories and the environmental stories, social stories, and some desk debate about Belt and Road Initiative to begin with, and we can focus on people as well. And before I end the presentation, actually, I think it is very important that we just to bring up the two very recent pieces of news. One is that China, Japan, and South Korea have all just very recently announced about their neutrality. So, like Japan and South Korea by 2050 and China by 2060. So that's one signal. However, the concern here is that all these signals, all these announcements about their domestic targets, and China, Japan, and South Korea are some of the world's largest, well, they are actually the world's largest co-investors. So it's time that, civil society organizations start to question about their carbon footprints outside their countries. And the second piece of news is from where I'm based. I'm based in Manila, although I'm Chinese. Just a few days ago, the Department of Energy in the Philippines announced a plan to actually say no to future on more coal. The importance of this, whether or not there are, of course, very practical plans to come out in the near future, the significance of this is that it sends a signal to China, to Japan, and to South Korea that Philippines do not want any coal power plants in the future. And this will be a very key message to very sensitive investors in these countries, and probably will be the very beginning of how actually the Philippines start to phase out of coal. So I will stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And I think it was great, and most of you must read the book that they've just brought out, where communities in 8 countries speak up about the effect of the Belt and Road going through their villages. You have Bangladesh, of course, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Indonesia, Philippines, etc. Okay, next, of course, on the BRI and its impact on climate change, just like Tom said. Yingji Shen is the project officer for Greenovation Hub in Beijing, China. Ms. Chen has a master's degree in environmental policy from Duke University. She then worked in the climate communication team of China Dialogue and as a student worker in Duke Kunshan University, and then an intern journalist of the Hubei Daily. She has also played the role of the vice chair of Wuhan University Students' International Communication Department before joining Greenovation Hub. We look forward, of course, from the Bangladesh perspective to what China can do to step away from coal and towards renewables, but we'll hear it from our next speaker about the impact on Bangladesh and the overall BRI impact. Yingji.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm really I'm new to this kind of dialogue, so I kind of get excited. And now I want to share my screen first. Could you see the PowerPoint? in the screen. Okay.
Yeah.
So hi, today I'm going to introduce GHub's perspective on BCIM and the climate change impacts along with the Belt and Road. And I'm Yingjie. And to begin with, I just want to introduce more about the Green Innovation Hub, which is a Chinese environmental NGO based in Beijing. And we actually have 4 topics. They are climate and energy, green finance and investment, ocean governance, and Belt and Road green development. Today our topic is actually really interrelated concerns that Green Innovation Hub have. So now focus on the BCIM. So first of all, the BCIM countries, they are all actually climate vulnerable countries. And Bangladesh and Myanmar in particular, they suffered a lot from the climate change impacts. And these 2 countries are actually categorized as the top 10 countries most affected by climate change, according to the CRI. China and India, they are also climate vulnerable, and their vulnerability is higher than the global average. We could see from this map that actually the darker the color is means that these countries or regions are more affected by extreme weathers in the last decade. So we find that the BCIM region is really the hotspot for extreme weather and also the climate change impacts. Except China, actually in India, Myanmar, and Bangladesh, they actually didn't have 100% access to electricity, especially in rural areas or at the community base. So, which means, in other words, when the climate disasters happen, these people living in these areas might be more susceptible or vulnerable because they don't have enough defense mechanism. That's the reason why the 4 countries are actually positively react to the climate actions. For example, under the Paris Agreement framework, these 4 countries, they all have upload their national determined contributions. And China and India also have the long-term strategies referred to the strategies for 2050. And China very recently, yes, we have a commitment that to reach carbon neutrality before 2060. And these 4 countries actually have special focus in the in the energy sector, that they all want to increase the non-fossil fuel share to a certain extent in the mid or in the long term. But if we look closer to Chinese overseas development financing, we could see that actually the majority of the investments go into the coal power investment, and compared to other MDBs, CDB and CHXM banks, they put a lot of investment into the in fossil fuel investment. So actually it brings a lot of risk. On the one hand, the FDI projects funded by those development banks might lock BRI countries to a high emission pathway and then might fail the Paris Agreement goal. And on the other hand, those newly built projects might face physical risks and transitional risks in the future. So this kind of project would also cause Chinese investors to suffer from financial or reputational losses in the future. We also identify some barriers of China's renewable energy overseas investments. And according to our reports, I put some bullet points here. So first, we think that actually some Chinese investors, they have insufficient funding capacity because the delay of domestic funding. And some host countries of BRI, the lack of sovereign guarantees. So those Chinese investors, they might feel they might amplify the project risk when they invest in certain countries because of the information gap. And also some renewable energy projects, they might have high financing costs and short financing periods, which also could make the Chinese enterprises hard to operate under certain circumstances. And also there's little cooperation between Chinese financial institutions and international commercial institutions. And so some Chinese investors, they actually lack of support from this kind of international institutions. But at the same time, because these countries, they have demand for to addressing climate change, and they also have the need for renewable energy. So actually there are some opportunities here we identified in another report, and you could find more details through the link, and I will share the link with you later. And so first, there's vast market in the BCIM region because yes, there's potential and there's need. And also the expansion of renewable energy projects could actually fill the electricity gap as well as reduce the GHG emission. And then we could try to achieve the NDC goals based on this kind of mechanism. And also increasing the end users' energy efficiency could also have great potential to reduction. And also improving the renewable energy could help to diversify the domestic power structure in Bangladesh or in Myanmar. And China's new commitments, actually, we think it could be a positive policy signal that China might leverage a stricter environmental risk management for FDIs. But yes, we are not sure yet, but we hopefully it could be a positive policy signal. And at last, we actually have some recommendations for the Chinese investors. So we think the Chinese investors should use NDC as a baseline to guide the decision-making process. And they should also identify and manage the impacts of climate change and incorporate this kind of consideration into the feasibility assessment. And we think Chinese investors could focus more on renewable energy projects. And also the FDIs, because of the new commitment, we think the FDIs could consider limiting, even stopping investing in coal power projects because that could bring more risks in the future. And then we think Chinese investors should try to improve the energy efficiency and also develop smart grids and distributed mini grid connectivity in BCIM areas. And we also find it important that we should have dialogues like what we have now between government, investors, and civil society participants, and to bridge the information gap, because I think the communication could help a lot. So I think my presentation will stop here, and thank you. If you have any questions, could visit our website and also contact me directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Yingji. And without further ado, let me bring you to an organization that has sort of brought us an encapsulated understanding on the Chinese lending institutional landscape with a very recent important resource, an advocacy tool that we will share in the chat box for all of us to use. Katrin Ganswind is energy and finance campaigner for Urgewald in Germany. and Urgewald has brought out this new research. As I said, they're the ones that are always following the money, which is so important nowadays, because if you turn off the tap, you can influence everything. She started in 2011 with grassroots mobilizing work for a very successful campaign against an export credit nuclear power plant in Brazil. Right after, she started her research on coal mining and the whole industry, including a visit to South Africa's coal mining hotspot, Mpumalanga. Since then, she has been part of the team commissioning and analyzing financial research on the coal industry. After a baby break in 2016, she returned to help research the global coal exit list that many of us know. Her focus nowadays is to foresee the finance research for Urgewald and its partners, supporting financial institutions and NGOs that want to work with the global coal exit list. And also, she looks at the underlying finance data, as also takes care of staff matters at Urgewald. So obviously, she's someone who can juggle a lot of things. As an anti-nuclear and climate activist, she has been involved in stopping a new coal power plant on the German Baltic coast and helped staging massive protests against nuclear transport in Eastern Germany. She's also co-founder of the Communication Collective, which facilitates finding consensus and solving conflicts in grassroots projects. In the meantime, she has studied ecology and international nature conservation. Katrin Ganswit will speak to us and give us an overview on Chinese companies and financial institutions involved, of course, in fossil fuel investments. Katrin, you have 10 minutes. And
thank you, Vida. I'm really flattered by the extensive introduction. Yes, I will also share my screen now. Yeah, so, and I guess for quite a few issues I'm going to raise, there's people around here in this webinar who are more experts than me. I'm just going to scratch on the surface, but still maybe there's bits and pieces of new information for every one of you. So what I'm going to look at now is just like a part of the Chinese players involved in Bangladesh, because there are many of them. So I'm just going to have a look at Chinese companies where we know they have ownership in new coal power projects in the area of the Pyra hub, as I understand. I only know it from the map, so that's why it looks like from above. These are namely the China Energy Engineering Group, China National Machinery Import and Export Corporation, Cenomarch, which is in 2 projects active with a subsidiary or joint venture, Bangladesh China Power Company Limited. We're going to look at Norinco, which is forming the subsidiary Bangladesh Rural Power, Norinco International Power, and in the end as to the huge company Power China. The 4 companies we're looking at are, as far as I know, involved in 5 projects in that area, and these projects are totaling 21.7 gigawatt of new coal power. First, China Energy Engineering Group, or short Energy China. They pursue a project together with Ashuganj Power Station Company, which is owned by the Bangladesh Power Development Board, if I'm not mistaken. And this company is a trade, consulting, equipment investment company, so not a power utility, but really an engineering company. They are mainly an EPC contractor. EPC is short for engineering, procurement, and construction. So they usually only co-own project companies, and depending on the project, also sell it after completion. Yeah, they are in China. They, according to their website, are the market leader in designing fossil fuel power plants, with 60% of the power plants designed by them in China. Second in the row is Cenomarch. They are involved in 2 projects in the Pyra area. Pyra 1 is already completed. You see the picture here. As well, again, it's more an equipment engineering, developing and construction company. We have projects totaling over 2 gigawatt on our global call exit list for them at the moment, not only in Bangladesh, but also in China, in Mozambique, and in Pakistan. Next one on my list was Norinco, China North Industries Group. When I was doing a Google search to find their logo, the first thing I saw was this tank, because it's actually a weapons company. Vehicle, weapons, petroleum, and minerals are usually their areas of operation. And the Patuakhali, this one Patuakhali project, is the only one we found, at least, where they are really a project owner. It's quite unusual for them, it seems. Next in my list was Power China. The Power Construction Corporation of China is really also a giant company which is rather more famous for building dams and all kinds of other power infrastructure. They have manifold subsidiaries which we found in the past, at least, being very active in pursuing new coal plants in different African countries. There's different kind of SEPCO subsidiaries. The other subsidiary, which is really, we first mistaked when we started researching for hydropower company, was Sinohydro. They actually also own a share in the Bangladesh project, and together with this subsidiary Power China is having 96% in Bharasalpalpa Powerplant. As well, as I said, they are mainly engineering, but they do own power plants as well in China. The expansion projects we have on the list for coal power is Bharasalpalpa in Bangladesh, but also a power plant in Mozambique. So when I try to summarize just these companies, but they stand really for many other players we find in different countries all over the world. They are, first of all, they are of course state-owned companies, though not all of them are 100%. So they still have other international investors which could be approached for campaigning. They come from the industry sector of engineering of and services for large power plants and infrastructure. Norinco is really the exception here. And they're funded, from what we know, mainly through the issuance of bonds, which is a typical Chinese financing instrument for the companies we had a look at least. Bonds is, for those of you who don't know, it's like a debt instrument. It's similar to a loan, but different as well. It's a debt which person can buy, or institution can buy on the market, which is supposed to be paid back in a certain time frame, a very long time frame, and usually 10 to 30 or even more years. The owner of the debt then is getting an interest rate every year, and in difference to loans, the bond can be held not only by banks, but also other investors, and it can be traded. Looking at Chinese financing, there are of course many more banks, public banks than we can mention here. But the most important ones, I think, to name here are the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, the China Construction Bank, the Agricultural Bank of China, and the Bank of China, as to say. If you look at their assets, these are the biggest 5 banks in the world. If you look at ranking by market capitalization, what we usually do when we're looking at Western banks, so which means what is the amount of shares worth, which is at the moment held by the market, they are among the top 10 together with the big US banks and UK's HSBC. And these players you find in pretty much any Chinese company which is also active in China. As said before, the typical instrument for financing we find from China's banks is bond issuance, also bonds as a typical financing instrument, and the underwriting or bond issuance is when a bank enables a company to sell its debt on the market. This bank is then also holding the risk of the debt sales because the bank obliges itself to buy a certain amount of these bonds for a fixed price and is then reselling it on the market. So it's really enabling the coal company in that case to sell debt on the market and generate finance like that. There's a special case we found, the China Exim Bank, which is more the type of a development bank, if you want to put that label at all. We found here a $1,980 million loan for the Bangladesh-China Friendship Company, which is developing Pyra and Patuakhali. At the very least, I want to say one more thing on foreign financing. As said before, the underwriting or bond underwriting and bond issuance are the typical financing between Chinese players, so Chinese company and a Chinese bank. But of course, there is some other finance as well, and there we find some loans or investments in equity, so ownership of shares. Where we find the most foreign loans is Power China and China Resource Power, which is an EPC contractor for Bharasalpalpa, and also mainly foreign investors, more than Chinese investors, apart from the Chinese state, of course, are we found for Cenomarch and China Resources Power. To name two banks at the end, most of you might know that anyway, it's really HSBC and Standard Chartered. This is the banks we are looking at in Europe when we try to find a leverage to campaign against financing of coal power in Asia. So, as I said, short overview, scratching at the surface. Happy for your questions later, and I hope together we can chase out the fossil industry out of Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much. It's great to get all that heavy data put to us in a very understandable fashion. Our next speaker is actually the committed chief executive of CLEAN, Coastal Livelihood and Environmental Action Network, and perhaps the one person that everyone here knows. He also, of course, very ably plays the pivotal role of member secretary for the Bangladesh Working Group on External Debt, BWGED. Hassan Mehdi has been an environmental and human rights activist ever since 1998, when he finished his graduation in political science from the National University of Bangladesh. He used to go out on michels and protests at that time, and now, of course, he does it on his computer from his office in Khulna. He's also the international committee member of the NGO Forum on ADB. Hassan Mehdi, the mic is yours, and you're going to tell us about the negative impacts of the Bharasalpalpa coal power plant, and you have exactly 8 minutes to do so. No more. You need
Thank you very much, Vidya.
And there you go. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vidya. I'll try to go fast so that I can complete it within the time I have given.
Not too fast. We need to understand what you're saying.
Okay. So here is the Borisa. I'm talking about Bharasalpalpa coal power plant. Before that, please see the BCIM economic corridor, the map of that. We had two lines, one through the northern part of Bangladesh, which cross in Indian region, it's called Tripura, and another from the Chittagong, which is directly through Myanmar. So here is the short data on Bharasalpalpa coal power plant. It's in Taltali, Barguna district in Bangladesh, which is a coastal district. Its total capacity 700 megawatt. That means 350 megawatt, and in two phases. It's through imported coal. According to the plan, they said that they will import coal from Indonesia or Australia. It is supercritical, not ultra supercritical. Total 1.2 to 1.5 million ton coal is required per year. So coal requirement in its lifetime is 34 million ton. Annual emission is 1.23 million tons of carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases, and lifetime emission is 30.75 million ton. So they have 310 acres of land. Now they acquired 220 acres of land, and the total 172 families, means 688 persons are displaced due to this power plant. The power plant's special purpose vehicle, that company's name is Bharisal Electric Power Company Limited, which is owned by Bharasalpalpa Energy Dubai, it's 4%, Sinohydro Hong Kong 92%, and Isotech Group of Bangladesh 4%. But again, Bharasalpalpa Energy Dubai is owned by 100% owned by Sinohydro. So Sinohydro is actually have 96% of share. And according to the PPA, power purchase agreement, the power plant has a lifetime of 25 years. The EPC contractor Shanghai Electric Power Construction Company Limited, SEPCC, and Dongfang Limited, which is also registered in UK. Harbin Electric Company is supplying the equipments, and Dongfang Electric Company Limited also supplying the same. Design is doing by Hebei Power Design and Research Institute. EIA Consultant is a US and Bangladesh joint venture company called EQMS. And total budgeted 540 million. No financial information on financier is disclosed, but it's written that Power China Resources will manage the finance. EIA report is not disclosed. Joint venture agreement signed in 2017. The Bangladesh government, means Bangladesh Power Development Board, BPDB, signed an agreement on 12th April 2018, and according to the design, it will come to operation, commercial operation on 12th January 2022. So here is the place where Bharasalpalpa Coal Power Plant is situated. And you can see the Bangladesh map, and then you can see the area. It's very near to Pyra Coal Power Hub, around 15 kilometers far from the Pyra Coal Power Hub, where the Chinese companies are planned to develop around 5 different coal power plants near to the Pyra seaport. So you can see here the exact area of where it is, and you can see at least 5 reserved mangrove forest in surrounding areas, which is called Laldia Mangrove Forest, Haringhata Mangrove Forest, Shonakata Eco Park, Phatrachar Mangrove Forest, and it's 19.2 kilometers far from the Sundarbans East Wildlife Sanctuary. You know, the Sundarbans is the largest mangrove forest in the world. So you can see all the distances from different ecologically critical areas, which are declared as ecologically critical area in 1997, according to the Bangladesh environmental law. So it's adjacent to the Ankujanpara village, and on the river bank, the place you can see on the river bank is the site of the power plant, and the dark round, that means circle, is the village here. The Ankujanpara village, total household 569, total population 2,264. So here is the construction work started in April 2018, and I can say you some stories. Here is Sanmia, one of the 2,264 inhabitants of Ankujan village. His 5.7 acres of land had been taken by the power company without any compensation. Another person called Sultan Sikdar and this Chanmia, they together filed a writ petition against the land acquisition. The company, in revenge, the company filed 15 cases of extortion against them. Then he has had to flee to the Haringhata mangrove forest. If you want to see Haringhata again, here is the Haringhata. You can say on the left, Haringhata mangrove forest. Several times they hide themselves in that mangrove forest again, several times, to get rid of from arrest. The power company evicted Sultan and his family from their 8 acres of land without any compensation. He and other villagers filed a case in court against the acquisition of the land. The court imposed an injunction on land acquisition. Then the company filed 13 cases of vandalizing the machineries against Sultan. He was abducted and disappeared for 3 days. Some of his co-activists were also abducted and come back after a few days, and they became tamed because of another intimidation and another torture. So 19 small farmers, including Siddiqur Rahman, submitted a petition to the Prime Minister on 15 January 2018, as they didn't get any compensation for their lands. The government formed a proving committee headed by Bangladesh Power Development Board Deputy Secretary Nirod Chandra Mandal. When the petitioners went to submit their papers to the proving committee on the site of this power plant, the project proponent Isotech, which is a Bangladeshi company, the project Isotech agents beaten them up in presence of the proving committee itself. So the power company has taken 70 acres of land from the bank of Pyra River. They took it from Bangladesh Power Water Development Board, which is called BWGED. Then it grabbed another land from which is owned by local small farmers. They also grabbed 32 acres of land from landless people who got it from the government for 99 years. That means the government allocated this land in 2001 to 2,100 years, this period. The power company also grabbed 56 acres of land owned by indigenous Rakhine communities. So according to the Environmental Conservation Act, there is a rule to publish the EIA report before developing any power plant. That means it's red category industry according to the law. But this company haven't disclosed any EIA report till now. So you can see on the up of the screen that there is a canal, and there are some of the boats you can see there, and then you can, that is in 2017, and in 2019 you can see that that area is already grabbed, that canal is already grabbed, and there is no boat there. And they vandalized the boat, they burned the boats, and they forced the people to take their boat from that canal, and they grabbed that 3 of the canals in that site. So this is the dredger. You can see the dredging pipe to one corner, and you can see the pipe to carry the sand carry to the project site. So this corner where the dredging machine
this
is
is all rich information, but you have to wrap up in 1 minute.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So dredging pipe is near to the sanctuary, and the sanctuary is now erosion is very fast. So the total Subas on the beach is going to disappear very soon. So these are the list of power plant according to the plan, which is going to be established or going to be installed by Chinese companies, and you can see the status of the power plants now here. So recently, the National River Commission of Bangladesh ordered the administration to evict 3 power plants, including the Bharasalpalpa Power Plant, on 17th of September. So our demand is to cancel the construction of coal power plants, including Barisal, Pyra, and Patuakhali and Fulbari, to go with the Paris Agreement in line with to ensure zero emission by 2050, not only in China itself, but also in the other countries where Chinese banks and companies are financing. Support Bangladesh to reach 100% renewable energy by 2050, and respect the rights of peoples to maintain their livelihoods, culture, and safe environment. And that is all from my side. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mehdi, for bringing us up close with what Chinese finance does on the ground, its impacts, etc. And that's why we are here, because that really fires our work. Our next speaker, who has another 8 minutes, is Sajjad Hussain Tuhin. He will speak to us on the negative impacts of the Pyra coal power plant in Bangladesh. Tuhin is currently research coordinator of CLEAN, that's Coastal Livelihood and Environmental Action Network, and supports the Bangladesh Working Group on External Debt in its campaign on energy transition in Bangladesh. Tuhin completed his master's in forestry and wood technology from Khulna University in Bangladesh. He likes to introduce himself as a taxonomist and a nature photographer. Tuhin is also very good at looking at EIA reports. So, Tuhin, when you come on, which you will right now, you can answer Omar's question. Isn't it a legal requirement for EIA reports to be publicly shared for public commenting? I mean, that's our general understanding. It happens in our countries. But is the case different in Bangladesh? Omar Elmavi asks. Meanwhile, everyone, as Tuhin gets ready to present and answer our questions, you can put your questions in the chat box. Yes. Yes, Tuhin, answer.
In Bangladesh, actually, it is mandatory, as Mehdi mentioned earlier, that you have to publish the EIA in public domain before you start the construction. But in several cases like Pyra and most of the cases, I can say that the EIA report has been published after the construction works begin. So there is a strict provision in our Environmental Act in 1997 that uh, the company, the sponsor company or the executing agency, they have to submit the EIA and get the environmental clearance before they start the construction. But usually in this part of world, I mean, in Bangladesh, India, and most of the countries, we didn't follow this kind of rule. So it's a bit complicated, but yes, yeah, we have the provision in our laws to publish the EIA report in public domain. So now I would like to present some information about the Pyra coal power plant, which is constructed in the bank of mighty Pyra River. And this is one of the most expensive projects till now for Bangladesh, and this is one of the biggest contribution or joint venture project of Bangladesh and Chinese joint venture. So first, if we look at the necessity of electricity in Bangladesh and the demand what we are generating, there is a big gap between the generation and our actual capacity and demand. We are now in a overcapacity, and coal is one of the new contribution to our energy sector currently. Now we are producing only about 20% from coal, and most of our energy sector is based on LNG and other form of fuel. So I don't know it is working properly or not. Okay, it's now working. So these are the scenario of our generation fuels and the capacities currently. I'm sorry, I'm extremely sorry. My computer is not working properly, so I can't change the slides. So, however, I will talk from my side, and
Tuhin,
I can share.
shall we request Prince to start sharing your slides instead? Prince, please share Tuhin's slides.
I'm just going through my points, and maybe I can share the slides after the presentation. Uh, the Pyra coal power plant is one of the ambitious projects in Bangladesh energy sector, and it has a capacity of 1,320 megawatt, which required a huge amount of coal, around 4.12 million tons per year, and it will made a catastrophe to this region because coal power plant is one of the project of coal hub in Bangladesh. I mean, a Pyra coal hub. And we have ambition to establish around 6 power plants currently, of 22 proposed coal power plants in Bangladesh currently. And Pyra will be the place where we are trying to generate about 8 gigawatts of power in for 2025. Uh, so Pyra coal power plant is the first power plant which is established and currently now in operation. It took about 1,200 acres of land from the Dhankhali village area, which is just beside the Pyra River and Andarmanik River. Biologically and ecologically, this area is a very critical zone because Andarmanik is a protected river sanctuary in Bangladesh, and it has about 85 species of fishes which is protected by the law. Uh, but this total ecology and ecosystem is threatened by this kind of power plants, and now our national fish, I mean the hilsha, which is one of our GI and national glory, it is in a big threat right at this moment because the uh, transition route and their habitat has been critically endangered with this kind of power projects. The local people are severely deprived as the most of the projects in Bangladesh, which is currently working with China, India, and other companies. The local people doesn't have any kind of information before the construction, and still the power plant is operating, but people have very limited knowledge about this kind of thing. What is going on in their areas? They don't have any kind of idea. The landowners, they have a very small notice before the construction, and most of the landowners doesn't have any kind of compensation from this power company. They are still fighting about these issues. Several false claims have been put it against the local communities to stop and to suppress their voices against this mess. There are plenty of corruption charges and accuses for the executing agencies and the people and the government, because several people say that they have to pay almost 25% and sometimes 50% of their compensation price as a bribe to the executive agencies and the land office. And the livelihood, the local livelihood, which is completely dependent on fishing and small businesses, which is diminished because of this heavy power industry. Now people doesn't have any kind of fishing spaces because of the heavy vehicle transportation throughout the Pyra River. And there is another thing which is the Pyra Deep Seaport, just building beside this power plant, which is another large heavy industry and needs so much transportation routes, so that the people doesn't have any access to go fishing in these areas right at this moment. The GRM mechanism is completely collapsed at this part of this power project, because the local people have only the signboards which is written in Chinese. The local language is completely executed from the signboards and GRM mechanism, so people understand nothing. And there are some incidents occurred in November 2019. One construction worker died, and there is a big conflict between the Chinese worker and the local worker. So because of this clash, there are a small tension building around the local people, and there are many more things already the six more power plants is announced at this area. So uh, the entire Dhankhali village and the Dhankhali union will be gone under the power projects and power plants and all those heavy industries, and people doesn't have any kind of crop plants and other livelihood facilities which used to be their indigenous practices. So With all these problems, the Pyra coal power plant will also burden us in economic means, because we have to pay about 195 crores of Bangladeshi taka in the name of capacity charge, and we don't have any sort of transmission line before December 2019, because our national grid is not supposed to carry this generation of electricity from Pyra coal power plant to the national grid, and we have to build 84 kilometer of transmission line through Gopalganj region, which is another economic burden to these power projects. So that's all from my side. I will try to share my slides after this. Thank you, Vidya.
Thank you, Tuhin, for powering on, really. And yes, we will share Tuhin's entire presentation with everyone here. We will email it to you. Anwar Hussain, we'll wait to come back to your question, but please type in questions. And if you really want to speak later on, you can type in star. And next, we shall have an interesting perspective from Omar El-Mavi, who is a lawyer by profession and is the coordinator for Decolonize, a coal resistance movement in his country. Before joining the Decolonize campaign, Omar worked as the National Liaison Officer of the Save Lamu organization, another Kenya-based organization that engages communities and stakeholders to ensure participatory decision-making, achieve sustainable and responsible development, and preserve environment, social, and cultural integrity. Omar El-Mavi will make a presentation today on advocacy techniques and tactics with Chinese policymakers and companies from his experience of the campaign against a Chinese project in Kenya. Omar, over to you.
Thank you, Vidya. I think for all the other meetings I'm going to be on, I need you as the moderator. I've never been introduced as nicely as you have. Going to share my screen as well, because everyone has been doing so.
Yes, it's only Clean in Bangladesh that has problems. I'm sure their internet will be cut off soon, the way they're going on webinars. But yes, make yours full screen and we're ready to go.
Lovely. Yeah, just let me know if you're able to see it.
Pardon, what did you say, Omar?
I'm saying just confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes. Very nicely.
Lovely,
We see the whole stack. Yeah.
Thanks. Let me just move this here. Yeah, so for those who don't know where Kenya is, at least this is a Bangladesh meeting. So I'm sure everyone knows where Bangladesh is. That's just the map of Africa, and we're just almost situated next to the Horn of Africa. I just wanted to say as a way of introduction that one, all our problems with coal started when we discovered that we had a commercial viable option of mining our coal from the eastern part of Kenya. And our government now decided to come up with an energy master plan to generate about 5,000 megawatts. And a significant number of those 5,000 megawatts was to come from coal. And that's how we started to conceive the first idea of doing both mining and the coal plant. Also an important thing, because I might forget to mention this, is our fight has still, at least we've been able so far to continue to resist coal within the country, and we're yet to have a single coal mine or coal plant, so to speak. The other thing I will want to mention as a way of introduction is the coal issue in Kenya, and I'm going to talk mostly around the Lamu coal plant. It's a $2 billion project. It's been sold as a Kenyan project because the companies that are taking lead are Kenyan-based companies. But if you go a little bit deeper, you realize that most of the financing, about 3/4 of it, is coming from China. The constructor power is coming from China, Power China, and only about $500 million is coming from shareholder equity. And I'll also just briefly talk about some other financial institutions that have been involved. But also importantly, it's the fact that I've seen most coal resistance campaigns are mostly just based on single projects. So you look at if it's one coal project within one village, then people are only organizing around that. But we quickly learned that just working from the grassroots only, although it's really important, is not the best way. So we also went a step further in trying to build a more national and international kind of movement in trying to push against coal within our country and definitely anywhere else that it's going to be. And also importantly, that I want to mention that our position has always been coal investment is as bad in Kenya as it is in Bangladesh. And therefore, we've always been quite open and very willing to support different other campaigns so that we don't see any coal projects happening in these areas. And finally, also the importance of making sure that you do not just work to stop these environmental and really, really harmful projects, but also provide alternatives for what is your solutions in trying to make sure that you still develop as a country and also make all these economic developments that our government have been very keen to push. I also want to mention that there are a lot of similarities between Bangladesh and Kenya. We all have an issue with overcapacity, but our government seem to still be interested in pushing for more and more coal and power generating projects within our country. We do know that our governments are paying billions and billions of dollars as capacity charges, even when most of these projects are most of the time being idle, and it's a problem that's affecting all of us. But after saying that, I also want to mention that we really just utilized a simple strategy in trying to be able to resist coal, at least so far. The most important part has been the community bit. So trying to push the grassroots and those innocent and poor and trusting villagers and community members within these areas that the coal projects want to be projected, to make sure that whatever they're standing for is amplified and you're supporting them. Because we've seen from the many, at least the projects that I've been able to interact with so far, not just in Kenya, is most of these projects are brought to community members that are poor. They are most of the time not well educated, and it's already a hassle for most of us who are educated to be able to read EIA reports, to be able to make up what power purchase agreements means, and therefore trying to convince these community members and make them understand what these projects are. So our strategy has been about pushing for the community to at least be able to be on the forefront, the engine of the campaign, and making sure that their issues are amplified and we get their messaging to whoever is responsible in these projects, including China in this case. We've also utilized a lot of lobbying and advocacy, and I'll talk in detail about them in a bit. But on lobbying, I want you to understand that we've looked at it in two different perspectives. So one has been really about pushing our policymakers here in Kenya and also abroad like China in trying to get them to sit down with us and really understand why we are against the coal projects, and definitely also what we are proposing as an alternative, because as someone said before, China is also very, very big in renewable energy, especially solar. We have a lot of potential here in Kenya and in many African and other countries within the world. And there's definitely, if it's money that they want to make, they have a chance to make a lot of money by investing in renewables, but definitely not affecting us and causing a lot of damage, so to speak. But the other thing that we've been doing around lobbying has also been, so on one part, we're looking at the policymakers, both locally and abroad, but also looking at the financials of the project. So the different people that have been approached in terms of wanting to invest in these projects. Here, we're talking about people like General Electric, we're talking about African Development Bank, Standard Bank South Africa, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China. The funny thing is, at least we've seen African Development Bank confirming that they won't continue investing in any coal projects. We've had Standard Bank South Africa confirming that they won't be involved in the Lamu coal plant. We've also recently had GE announcing that they will be exiting new coal. We're definitely trying to push to find out whether the Lamu coal plant is one of those projects. But ICBC, Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, has been very reserved, even after trying to reach out to them severally. They haven't been very responsive or even talked to us in terms of confirming whether they are still continuing with this project or withdrawing from it. We've also utilized litigation. By litigation here, I mean using all the different legal processes and mechanisms in either delaying or at least stopping seeing these projects going through. As a campaign, we've really acted quite fast because we realized, the best chance of stopping these projects is if you stop the opposition before the construction begins. Because once the construction has started, the government and everyone else will tell you that this is a lot of money that has been invested, and the best that we can do is to come up with different regulations and measures to make sure that the effects are in some ways curtailed. But what we've done is, utilizing courts and court processes. So we challenged the EIA license that was issued for the Lamu coal plant successfully, so that we got it revoked for various reasons, including the fact that the public was not adequately consulted. And although that process is still on appeal, but the good thing is, in the meantime, the status quo is going to remain, and therefore it means we still are able to implement the other strategies without being worried that a coal plant will be constructed anytime soon. And finally, just the importance of making sure that all these gains and challenges that we've got from these three strategies I told you about, making sure that we are able to communicate and amplify, and making as many people as possible know about the struggles, know about the issues, and in many ways also be able to get that much traction. And also within communications has also been a big part about working in solidarity with different other campaigns on fossil fuels, on nuclear, and different other efforts. Because as I said, our position has always been that we would have failed if we stopped coal in Kenya, but we still have coal plants being erected in other places within the world, because climate change and impacts that are coming from it definitely don't know any borders. We've had challenges which I won't delve too much on because of time, but I'll just talk of two. One, it's the fact that this is the first time we're looking at coal, and therefore all these hula baloos we're hearing about employment opportunities and stuff like that won't necessarily work for us, because we don't have the local expertise required to be able to work in these coal plants. We've also had issues with access to information, and I'm seeing it's the same problem in other countries. The vital documents that we need to resist these projects are not made available to us. And therefore, when we say that we are against the projects, we're told you guys haven't even seen the documents. How can you be sure that it's going to have all these negative impacts when you're actually planning to do a state-of-the-art project, which is going to only emit water vapor on their chimneys and not all these CO2, nitrogen oxide, and other emissions that are coming from it. Finally, in terms of the techniques and strategies we used, one, we quickly really realized that you don't have chances of success without knowing your facts. So we've done a lot of research, and I'm also finalizing video. I see your video is on. So we've done a lot of research in trying to make sure that we make a case of why the coal in Kenya is both environmental harmful and definitely economically unviable. We've had and engaged big media to make sure that we get as much traction as possible in highlighting our issues, but also mentioning how China is involved on this. And with China, as much as we tried to engage with them, in the past 5 years, we were only able to really get to them when we did a protest that we aimed to go to the embassy, to the Chinese embassy in Nairobi, although we didn't get there for obvious reasons, but just 2 days after the ambassador wrote to us, asking us to meet him at the embassy and go through our issues. So I would really want to say this in a minute as I finalize. One, definitely know your facts and do research so that you are working from a point of information and not necessarily from an emotional angle. Two, you have to strike a balance between diplomacy and at certain times you need to be aggressive, because our governments, at least here in Africa, if you're trying to be too diplomatic, they'll do what they want and keep telling you what you want to hear. But at the end of the day, you'll be the one that's losing. Three, China is really big in trying to have this big public image that they are supporting African countries and other countries over the world. Look at BRI and other projects. And therefore, if you are able to show and make a very big negative publicity on these projects, China has no other option but to withdraw from them, because they also have a lot of interest in infrastructure and other projects within different parts of the world. And definitely, finally, the importance of giving your own solutions as to how, whatever interest or goals that the government has in trying to generate more capacity or employment or other issues. What are your alternatives, and what's the best way of still getting to the promised land, but with minimal, if not any, negative impacts? Thank you up to there, and I'm looking forward to engaging. Back to you, Vidya.
Thank you, Omar. Thank you so much. And now we go on to someone who is not an apologist, but a sinologist by training with a post-PhD degree. She works as the head of the China desk in Urgewald. And for many years, she has taught at different universities with a focus on modern China, political reform processes, and social change. She's published extensively on the role of public intellectuals in China and civil society and environmental protection, as well as the cultural revolution. She is a great networker and author and has been consulting various political institutions for many years. In 2008, she co-founded the China program of the German Stiftung Eisenhaus, which she continued to build up and manage until 2019, quite lately. In addition, together with partners from China, she founded the EU-China NGO Twinning Program from 2012 to 19, which included over 140 alumni from over 20 European countries and, of course, China. Nora joined the banking team of Urgewald in September of 2019 with a focus on infrastructure investments in the framework of the BRI. Her special advocacy work is on the Asian Infrastructure and Investment Bank, AIIB. She works with a broad network of NGOs from Asia and Europe. In addition, she analyzes China's new global role that everyone is so excited to know more about, particularly in the area of global government institutions and, of course, human rights. Nora will bring her lens and her gleanings over the years and tell us more about advocacy techniques and tactics with Chinese policymakers and companies. Dr. Nora Sausmikat. She's told us she's not on her best today. She's not feeling well, but I know she'll do spectacularly.
Thank you very much, Vidya. I will not start the video because you will be not amused by that. I'm so sorry. I'm sick. I will give my best. I'm the last speaker, and the big audience waited so long. Thank you so much. And honestly, all the main, very crucial issues already have been named. And so I just share my screen here. Wait. Can you see that?
Yes, we can. We can, Nora.
Okay. So, okay. let me just very briefly put this panel, the specific panel on advocacy, China, Bangladesh, into perspective, because this is a part of a bigger initiative, and we would like to facilitate a network specialized on infrastructure investment monitoring. And I know there are similar initiatives. I know at least about 2 others, but I have to say the more the better, because we need to exchange, and this dialogue is a wonderful opportunity to do that. And we just saw with all these other presentations that there's still a lot to do. I was asked to give an input on how to best interact with Chinese policymakers and companies. And perhaps we, that's just a recommendation, an idea, we should develop the best strategies together with our African and Chinese peers. Well, I can only speak about what I know, and all I know is based on my study and exchanges with Chinese friends, and also learning from Urgewald. I'm, so to say, a veteran scholar of Chinese civil society. So the Chinese experienced massive environmental damage and health risks through industrial pollution. And these experiences of several CSO generations can help us to learn about best strategies. I just mapped a few examples here on the slides throughout the last 20 years. Learning from the past, I would like to start with an iconic case from the past and translate it later into the present with specific focus on Bangladesh. So the golden age, oops, honey, I cannot wait. Yeah. So the golden age of Chinese advocacy movements was back in the early 2000s, when environmental CSOs still profit from the new openness after the UN World Women's Conference in Beijing, and a strong support in the political elite in the anti-dam movement. So there was a little window of opportunity in China when a whole cascade of dams could be stopped. Many of you might have heard about this New Jiang campaign, 2003 to 2005. A coalition of mainly Beijing and Yunnan civil society organizations, journalists, scientists joined forces to oppose this cascade of dams. And since then, many research articles have been published on this trailblazing success. If we simplify now and summarize the 4 main ingredients of this success, we can state that it was good timing, media coverage. So all of this have been already mentioned in these examples we listened before. Then third, the support by the political elite, and finally, the international networking. So just very briefly, let me spell out each of them. The timing, it can be also, if we think about Bangladesh or Kenya, it can be a scandal, it can be a disaster, or it can be a national new law. In the case of the New Jiang, it was a new law. The Environmental Impact Assessment Law came into effect in 2003. It was clearly a landmark because it defined public participation as a part of the assessment process. And immediately after the enactment of this law, a young group started to launch a protest against the plan to construct the hydropower plants. After that, the same year, the Environmental Protection Bureau had organized a conference in Beijing on the impact of hydropower projects, which included media and also civil society organizations. And these organizations, civil society organizations, assisted concerned farmers living in the dam project area to attend the conference. The CSO could rely at that time at a newly educated eco-elite, which is another landmark for this era. Parallel to these conferences, 9 CSOs founded the China Rivers website. And finally, these CSOs, some of them have been also able to attend United Nations international conferences. So, in conjunction with wide media coverage on the dam topic, this triggered a public debate. And the former Vice Minister of the Environmental Office managed to implement the new law in a hitherto unknown manner. From 2005 onwards, his administration stopped 30 illegal power projects, implemented the supervision of enterprises in 9 provinces, and examined several engineering projects. Well, the time changed since 2005, and today we have many sustainability guidelines, like the Green Credit Guideline in China, for companies and banks to follow. But advocacy is getting more and more dangerous. We need today to rely on proofs and evidences, as already mentioned before by my fellow panelists, and on hard data. So no matter whether we look to the destruction of forests or the pollution of water or the destruction of livelihoods, companies and banks always have a share in it and help to make this happen. So how to deal with these stakeholders? There are a few handbooks for local communities on how to deal with Chinese investments. So one is on Latin America and another one on safeguarding people and environment in Chinese investments. Both are very helpful. Then there is a recent publication by Thomas Hell on the decision-making processes along the Belt and Road, and Urgewald's overview on Chinese lending. Finally, the Boston University published a few days ago a data set on the environmental and social risks along BRI. So combined, these tools will help us to move forward. In the mentioned IDI publication, there's a list of steps that are necessary when you want to lobby on Chinese companies and political decision makers. I will not list here every single step, but I would like to focus on 3 important steps. So the first question is, who is involved? And I don't need to tell that Mehidi or Omar and all these people who are quite active in lobbying. But well, you need to map who is involved. Secondly, who finances, and thirdly, how to mobilize international support to hold each single bank, each company, each insurance company involved in that specific project accountable. So firstly, you need, as I said, to map, to identify the strongest pressure points and instruments. This is a map which is published in this mentioned IDI handbook, and you don't need to really study everything, just it's an example how you can map all these stakeholders involved in your specific project. You have state actors, industry groups, companies, and finally the financiers. I will just hurry very quickly through these different levels concerning focusing on Bangladesh. So when you have the state level and you have to lobby with Chinese investments, the decisions made who is investing where is made mainly by the recipient country and government and the Chinese government and the Chinese state-owned enterprises. As China is the biggest trading partner of Bangladesh, the state authorities welcome very much Chinese investments. So, and to make it very smooth and make the revenues as big as possible, we have these free trade zones or export processing zones, how they called in Bangladesh. So they facilitate speedy supply. They facilitate, as I said, big profits for fossil fuel investors. So the first recommendation from my side would be really to lobby on these EPZs in Bangladesh. Secondly, the Bangladesh free trade agreement with China is one of the first generations trade agreements. You see that in this purple, no, it's more red color. And these bilateral investment treaties, they contain binding clauses for investor trade arbitrations. So the China-Bangladesh Investment Treaty is on the step to get renewed. And there you really should watch out and be very active and inform yourself what is happening in this respect. We come now to the second level, the industry group level. Recently, there was, in July this year, there was a 6.4 billion infrastructure wish list to the Chinese government, handed over by the Bangladesh government, including the expansion of Pyra seaport, bridges, and so on. This investment wish list was channeled through an investment cooperation working group. And this is my second recommendation. You should really find out who is active in this working group. In China, it's the China Chamber of Commerce of Import and Export of Machinery and Electronic Products. On the Bangladesh side, there is this Bangladesh China Chamber of Commerce and Industry. These institutions play a significant role in preparing and facilitating big bilateral trade deals. For example, the Bangladesh Chamber is facilitating the lease or rent of land and so on. So you really should make sure or should find out who are the members in these groups. And if the land is illegally leased, prove if the chamber is involved, monitor properly, and if there's anything other big in the pipeline. So thirdly, we come to the company level, and Katrin already named the main important companies involved in the Pyra hub. I just list them here again. What I just want to flag here is that they belong, most of them are state-owned enterprises, as we heard, and they are part of an inner Chinese reform plan for state-owned enterprises. This is very important because next year there will be the 14th five-year plan in China, which is issued by the National Reform and Development Commission. And the state-owned enterprises play a very big role because they need to fulfill the vision of building, quote, a stronger, better, and larger SOEs that are internationally competitive and can lead the development of key technologies. It seems to be a very centralized process, and sorry for the slide, it's from the Fairbanks Center, but in fact, these big state-owned enterprises do not always follow guidelines and visions. They are embedded in a complex system, as you see, of different government institutions, but also in family and clan interests and lobby groups, military and local government interests. So there's a strong interest in binding them to more existing rules, regulations, and guidelines. So here you come in. To fulfill this task, you can, so to say, help the Chinese government to make these big state-owned enterprises to follow China's guidelines and rules. So you can hold these SOEs and the state accountable by documenting the project risks and impacts, assessing compliance with local laws. There you can, the next step would be litigation, and check which guidelines and standards are applicable for which company. This is all laid down and written very exactly and detailed in this IDA handbook I mentioned. And then push really to follow these standards and guidelines. For example, one little example, the CMOC, the China Dimum Corporation, a Chinese mining corporation with operations in Brazil, Australia, and China, just recently released policies which include various types of participation, guidelines for corruption, guidelines for human rights, and so on. So this is something which is going on, and where you really should be aware of that they are more and more pressed to follow these guidelines. And finally, you can also inform the companies about these guidelines, because it's not very sure, not always these companies know about all the guidelines which would apply. And finally, we come to the finance level. Already Katrin outlined the main financier in the Chinese coal business. We at Urgewald just published this little paper, 12 pages, which show how these financial institutions are embedded in the Chinese political system. And here, for example, you see the strict separation of aid and economic cooperation. On the left side, you see the Ministry of Finance being responsible for multilateral cooperation and aid in the framework also of Belt and Road. You see that there. And on the right side, you see the 4 big banks already mentioned several times in this workshop, and the 2 big main investment banks, China Development Bank and Exim Bank, which have a kind of ministry level in this chart. These are, when we look to the Belt and Road investments, these for the big 4 and the state-owned commercial banks, they carry the biggest share of the funding of the Belt and Road. In the Pyra hub, we find the 2 policy banks as well as the 4 commercial banks, the big 4, engaged in the Pyra hub. Similarly to companies, these institutions also are bound to guidelines like the Green Credit Guideline I mentioned before, or the OFDI guidelines. There are several Chinese NGOs push for the implementation of these guidelines in China. These guidelines request an EIA, an environmental impact assessment, prior to implementing development projects, the identification of environmental risks, and the engagement with the local communities. So as we know, and as my fellow speakers mentioned before, very often these guidelines are ignored, or there's a lack of enforcement mechanism, grievance mechanisms are lacking. And also Chinese authorities very early signaled that they will liberalize these guidelines for streamlining investment abroad. So you do not need an approval as long as the project, for example, will be under $1 billion US. Another big problem is that the supervisors are understaffed. As a recent publication has shown, that the NDRC, which is responsible for approving the project and the companies, and to supervise the China Exim Bank, has only 4 people who are supervising. And this is, very easily to understand, that's too less. So how to campaign? One is holding them responsible and try to figure out which guideline will suit them, which guideline is applicable. And the other one, you can really jump on the wagon of Green Belt and Road Initiative, which is propagated very widely. You can display your findings. You can wait, this is the wrong one. You can very clearly show where it contradicts the greening BRI. I'm finishing one more slide. And so this is, I think the advocacy techniques are clear. Also, as I have shown in this part, who is responsible, you need to address your letters to the responsible ministries in these investments, which are the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Finances. And this is my last slide, because if you want to understand Chinese lending system and where the money is coming from, you need to know the main differences between other lending systems and the Chinese lending system. I just quickly summarize, and you see that the approval of a project needs only be made by the Ministry of Commerce, the MOFCOM, plus the recipient country's regulators. And this is one reason why I really pressure you to lobby in your own country to your own regulators. Well, these two ministries, the Ministry of Commerce and the Ministry of Finances, are the main ministries you have to address when you want to lobby on the big Chinese investment public banks. So I stop here, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Nora. You did fabulously well, and you mapped it all out for us, and you told us what actions to do, what to look out for. So that's great. There are action points that I know our Bangladeshi friends will be all raring to take up. And now we go into the Q&A. There are only a couple of questions that have come. The chat has been buzzing, of course, with a lot of resources and other stuff. But we have from Yiting Wang, who is in the USA, and it's really early morning, and she's got up much before sunrise, even though she works for the Sunrise Project. And maybe we should give her a chance to say what she had to say about Barisal. You had a question, Yiting, for Hassan Mehdi. Do you want me to read it out? Why don't you put it forth, Yiting?
Thank you, Vidya. As a result, I'm not going to turn on my video camera as well. I'm barely out of bed. So yeah, I think I just, there's a general interest of what's going to happen with the energy minister's announcement of reconsidering, the majority of the coal projects that are in the pipeline. And especially very concerned, the Chinese power sector industry is very concerned both with some of the projects that are already under construction, such as Bharasalpalpa. And so I just wanted to know what is the, what do you think is the motivation behind the government to make these announcements, and especially how are they going to deal with projects that have already been, financially closed or under construction? And is this just sort of a negotiation tactics to lower the prices? And then I think also most importantly, sorry about my cat. Most importantly, how do we use this policy uncertainty and transmit, right, this risk of uncertainty in terms of investment security for Chinese investors more broadly, so that they get the message that coal is no longer the preferred choice here in this country, and then they need to work on providing alternative solutions. That's it. My main question.
Mehdi,
thanks for the organizers.
Yes, Mehdi.
Thank you, Yiting, for questions. But whether the friends are ready to listen to again many data. Okay. So a few days ago, we had a discussion internally, with the policymakers. So now I'm going to tell you about some data. First, 7 power plants are under construction now, which is one in India, which is commissioned by Bangladesh, but power plants in India, which is called Adani Godda coal power plant, 1600 megawatt. Bashkhali Esalam coal power plant, which is 2-phase, it's 1320 megawatt. Barisal coal power plant 350 megawatt is going on. Matarbari coal power plant phase 1 with Japan. Matarbari phase 2. Patuakhali RPCL plus Norinco, that one. And Rampal coal power plant with India. So total installed capacity of these 7 power plants are 8,310 megawatt, and related capacity is 7,600 megawatt. Plus existing capacity is installed 1,844 megawatt. That means Pyra coal power plant 1,320 megawatt, and the Barapukuria coal power plant, which is 574 megawatt. So the government has signed 18 agreements till now. Seven is under construction now, as you learned. And Power Division prepared a list of 16 power plants to cancel now, because out of 18 there are 16. That total in plan there are 34, and 11 is which is called unsolicited, not under the plan, but later it's came as a proposal from different companies. So according to the policymakers, the private companies like Orion, Beximco, and Meghna Group don't have enough capacity to provide sponsors down payment. Usually around $1.1 billion required to install a 660 megawatt coal power plant. As per the standard rule, the client or the project proponent has to invest around 30%. So this much they don't have. So this which power plants are proposed by these companies, that means Orion, Beximco, and Meghna Group, cannot come to implementation. Among the 18 agreements, 11 has been signed by the government to implement through joint venture companies like Ashugans Power Company, Bangladesh Power Development Board, BR Power Gen, Coal Power Generation Company of Bangladesh, Electricity Generation Company, these companies. Okay, so government needs around 611 million. That means Bangladeshi taka 52 billion to implement these power plants, one after another. So after the outbreak of COVID-19, the government is no longer interested to invest that much money for new project, as there is a big burden of existing large infrastructure projects now, which is, including the Padma Bridge, Karnafuli Tunnel, Dhaka Metro Rail, Chittagong Railway, Dhaka Elevated Expressway, etc. Many big, large projects. So only the RPCL and with the Norinco, that is going to be constructed under as a new project, as the latest agreement signed in September. So it is Japanese interest again in Japanese Matarbari area. It's Japanese interest to complete the Matarbari phase 2 and deep sea port, because it has a geopolitical interest on it. So government signed the umbrella agreement with Japan earlier. So it is Bangladesh government is not interested to make a discomfort for them. So that is one thing. Overseas companies like KEPCO, Sembcorp, Sumitomo, that's Malaysian company TNB, I think, and also the policymaker, I'm not mentioning the name, they don't think that these companies are coming to implement this coal power plant because of the international pressure and the problem and the question about their reputation. So another thing is the government understood that there is no need of mega power plants, as the requirement will not be as projected in the master plan. So when he asked about the projection, they replied that the high ambitious plan is a political strategy to attract the more investment. But all political people understand that. But that is his their what's called they made a joke-like thing, that political people understand that this is to project that we are going so fast. So according to the plan, just a few days ago, the Sustainable and Rural and Renewable Energy Authority, SREDA, came with a new plan of developing around 50,000 megawatts from renewables by 2041. This is yet to be published. Only the draft is prepared, and the Chinese companies like along with the Pyra coal power plant, Chinese companies are interested to generate around 500 megawatt in next few years through the Bangladesh-China friendship company. That's the update from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Mehdi. There's another question. Of course, Shibayan also was raising his hand. Shibayan, did you want to say something? Where are you? Shibayan Raha from 350.org. I can't see Shibayan right now. Okay, we had Beth Walker with a question. Beth, would you like to put it yourself? And this time we see you, of course. Beth Walker is the UK editor of one of our co-organizers, The Third Pole.
Hi everyone, and thanks for such a fascinating discussion today. It was really brilliant presentations. My question was, so we've been covering at the Third Pole, energy developments closely in Bangladesh, impact on environment, as well as on communities. And so I just wanted to see if anyone could talk about whether there were groups in Bangladesh putting forward kind of constructive alternatives to coal and LNG, and whether there was a kind of any movement around that at a kind of grassroots level. So
Thank you.
So anyone who can answer that.
Yes, yes. So we have Aval Bhai here, we have Mehdi, we have Tuhin, and Mehdi, do you want to go on that too, or would you suggest someone else take that?
If Awal Bhai or Tuhin goes, then I'll be happy. And
okay. Okay. Yes, you've spoken enough. Tuhin, Awal Bhai. I think Tuhin is still having problems, Mehdi. So you better go.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing is, it is informally. I'm ensuring you that the policymakers is not thinking about replacing LNG with the coal in the same project. There are several proposals of coal LNG based power plant is already on the table, and it's under the process of approval. There are some of them are approved, and already Reliance started construction of 718 megawatt LNG power plant in Meghnaghat. Summit Group started implementing 583 megawatt LNG power plant in Meghnaghat also, and Beximco Group started the process of implementing LNG power plant in the coastal zone. Already Siemens signed an agreement with Bangladesh government to implement a 3,600 megawatt power plant nearby in Pyra area only. So this is not replacing, but they are interested to implement more energy power plants now. So our position is from Bangladesh. It's around. It's like going from an oven to a burning, in a pan, frying pan. But Bangladesh has enough capacity to generate 150,000 megawatt of renewables from solar only. So the SHREDA, and that means Sustainable and Renewable Energy Development Authority, they and also government is interested to shift from the coal, and we are taking this opportunity to push more for renewables now. That is the thank you.
Thanks. So I don't see Shibayan right now, unless somebody has a question. Yes, Nusrat Khan, would you like to put up your question, please?
Everyone, I'm Nusrat Khan from River and People, and right
yes,
now,
Nusrat.
yeah,
We can't hear you too well. Could you speak up?
Hey, everyone. Is that okay?
Yes, sort of. It's better now.
Okay. I'm Nusrat from Riverine People, which is based in Bangladesh. And my question is for Mehdi Bhai. Is there any study on the river pollution, especially the Pyra river pollution or the biodiversity or risk of biodiversity extinction, especially on Pyra river? If that coal power plant is to be built on the bank of Pyra river. If there is any reference, then can you just share that link or?
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Nusrat. Mehdi, go again.
And thank you, Nusrat Appa. One thing is, in 2019, late 2019, BAPA and Bangladesh Paribesh Andolan BAPA and Transparency International Bangladesh TIB, they came up with a short brief on the impact of Pyra coal power plant on the Hilsha sanctuaries, and later there was a big report in Daily Pratham Alo in Bengali. You can go through that, and we are coming with another study on Barisal and Pyra coal power plant in December, I think. So you can go with it. And also, I will request you to see, keep your eyes on Daily Samakal, where we write regularly on the river and energy issues. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
are, sorry for that interruption. I went through those report, like media report, but I'm talking about that kind of in-depth report or
Nusrat, your voice isn't very clear. Maybe you can type in the chat box whatever you were trying to say. And I'll request Anwar Hussain Saab to please put forth the point he wants to make.
Okay. Thank you, Vidya. It was actually a good presentation. Thanks to Mehdi. I'm Anwar Hussain. I'm actually working with LNSP, this Life and Nature Safeguard Platform. Just, I would like to thank all the informant that enriched my knowledge as well as our network's knowledge on the power sector and the investment. But one of the, I don't want to lengthen the discussion, but I would like to emphasize one point that if we can see, I especially request Mehdi Bhai for the interest of Bangladesh. One of the things I have missed, like the opportunity cost analysis in terms of socio-economic and political, because Bangladesh is passing through a geopolitical turmoil right now going on, and then government's interest is very careful to go along with. So in that kind of situation, we need an opportunity cost analysis so that we can understand it better way and go for the advocacy and lobbying. I just appreciate Umar. He was talking about the solution and alternative. In terms of like when we talk to the government, usually they rationalize all that EIA and SIA, social impact assessment, and then they go with the investment, they pass it through. So those kind of things needed to be challenged. And of course, I appreciate Dr. Nora, who has pinpointed where we can and we should go for the advocacy and campaign. So considering all those points, I think we should be more proactive and getting all this information to go for this kind of initiative, which will bring the actual result for the people of our country as well as in other countries. Thank you very much. Thanks for nice facilitation by Vidya. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Anwar Bhai. And now, with the permission of everyone, should we can, I think, roll towards the end. Nusrat, Clean will come up with a report in December, they say. And Nora also apologizes that she could not be present in person, but only via voice, which was quite enough, Nora. Thank you. Let's have a formal round of vote of thanks, because nothing in the subcontinent can go without a formal vote of thanks. And for this, I call upon Beth Walker, who is, of course, as I said, the UK editor of the Third Pole, She has researched and written extensively about Asia's international rivers for many years now and has lived and worked in Yunnan province. She studied Chinese at Oxford University and development management at the London School of Economics. Beth.
Thanks, Vidya. Well, just really, I want to say thank you for everyone who's organised this event, to Urgewald and Nora, who we've sadly lost now, but has worked directly through this, to Clean and BWGED, and to Vidya for your very warm facilitation and your very detailed and excellent introductions. I think it's been a really fantastic session, and to bring together kind of very different perspectives, both from the kind of Chinese policy and finance side, and from to hear more from people in Bangladesh about the impacts of these projects on the ground. And I really hope that this event will go towards kind of forging some lasting links between Chinese NGOs and Bangladesh NGOs working on these issues. At the third poll, we cover environmental issues, looking specifically at water in Asia from a regional perspective, but we're following, energy issues very closely in Bangladesh and elsewhere, and also looking at, the impacts of the Belt and Road Initiative. So I do urge everyone to stay in touch with me. If you have ideas of what we should be covering, we publish both stories from journalists, but also perspectives from experts and researchers like yourself. So yes, I just want to say thank you to everyone for taking part, for the enthusiastic, constructive energy, and I hope this is just the start of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. And of course, this is one of many dialogues that the Bangladesh Working Group on External Debt, Clean, and other friends have put together. Please do join us perhaps on the 6th, where we hope to have another dialogue on transboundary movement of fly ash. Yes, fly ash. So together with monies and coal and electricity, as Mehdi mentioned, electricity will be manufactured in Godda, India, and will travel to Bangladesh, and the coal would have come all the way from Australia. But it's not just electricity that goes transboundary, it's also fly ash that makes its way through the Sundarbans, which is like a shared heritage. I hope you will join us for that. And we hope to bring it to you on the 6th of November, coming up next week. Until then, let's all push coal out. That's the one business that needs to shut down. Let's go into renewables that is democratic and people-centric. Thank you all.